The alarm systems on the Wayward Star started screaming at exactly 0900 hours. Commander Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the sound cut through the quiet hum of the ship. He dropped the cup and ran toward the bridge, his boots echoing in the metal corridors. Lisa Grant was already at her station, her fingers moving fast across the controls. She looked up when Jake entered, her face tight with concern. "Commander, we've got a distress signal. It's coming from about 200,000 kilometers away." Jake moved to stand behind her chair, looking at the screen. The signal was weak and broken, but it was definitely there. "Can you clean it up? Get me something clearer." Lisa worked the controls for another minute. The static cleared a bit and they could hear something. It wasn't any language Jake recognized. The sounds were strange, like clicks and whistles mixed with high-pitched tones. But the panic in those sounds was clear enough. Someone was in serious trouble. "Kyle, get up here," Jake said into the comm system. Kyle Barnes appeared a few minutes later, still wiping grease from his hands. He was the ship's engineer and he'd been deep in the engine room when the alarm went off. "What's going on?" Kyle asked. "Unknown vessel in distress," Jake said. "I need you to squeeze every bit of speed you can from the engines. We're going to check it out." Kyle nodded and headed back down. Within minutes, the Wayward Star was moving faster, pushing toward the source of the signal. Jake called Amanda Cole to the bridge too. If someone was hurt, they'd need their medical officer ready. It took them 30 minutes to reach the location. What they found made Jake's stomach drop. The ship floating in space ahead of them was a wreck. It was unlike any design Jake had seen before. The hull was organic-looking, almost like it had been grown instead of built. But now it was torn open in several places. Atmosphere was venting from the holes in white streams that glittered in the starlight. "Dear God," Lisa whispered. The ship was spinning slowly, out of control. Scorch marks covered the hull. Jake could see where weapons fire had hit it again and again. This wasn't an accident. Someone had attacked this vessel. "Life signs?" Jake asked. Lisa scanned quickly. "I'm reading multiple biosigns. They're weak, but they're there. Maybe 30 or 40 individuals." Jake made his decision fast. "Get us alongside." Kyle, prepare the docking tube. Amanda, get the medical bay ready for multiple casualties. We don't know what we're dealing with, but they need help now. "Commander," Lisa said carefully, "we don't know who they are. This could be dangerous. First contact protocols say we should call it in and wait for a proper team." Jake looked at the dying ship. Another explosion rippled across its surface. They didn't have time. Protocols won't help those people. "We're going in." The next hour was chaos. Jake led a team onto the alien ship wearing environmental suits. The interior was dark and filled with smoke. Emergency lights flickered, casting strange shadows. The corridors were shaped wrong for humans, too wide and too low. Jake had to hunch as he moved. They found the first survivor in what looked like a control room. The creature was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. It stood about 4 feet tall on 6 legs. Its body was covered in a hard shell that shimmered with colors. Large compound eyes dominated its head. When it saw Jake, it made a sound like wind chimes. "It's okay," Jake said softly, holding up his hands to show he meant no harm. "We're here to help." The creature didn't attack. Instead, it gestured frantically down a corridor. Jake followed and found more of them. Some were injured, bleeding a blue-green fluid. Others were trying to help their wounded. One larger creature seemed to be in charge. She wore something that might have been a uniform. Jake touched his helmet, switching to the universal translator they carried for emergencies. "We have a ship," he said slowly. "We can take you to safety." The translator did its best with the alien language. The large creature responded, and the translator rendered it in broken English. "Children. Must save children first. Children." Jake's heart clenched. He nodded and called back to the Wayward Star. "We need all hands. We're evacuating everyone." For the next 2 hours, the crew worked without stopping. They carried the aliens across the docking tube one by one. Some were so small that Amanda could carry 2 at a time. Kyle rigged up support systems to help the injured ones breathe. Lisa kept the ships connected despite the stress on both vessels. Jake found himself carrying one of the children. It was tiny, barely the size of a house cat, and it clung to him with all 6 of its little legs. It made soft chirping sounds that reminded him of birds. He stroked its shell gently, murmuring reassurance even though it couldn't understand him. They got 37 of them off before the alien ship's power core started to fail. Sensors screamed warnings. "We have to go now." Kyle shouted over the comm. Jake counted heads one last time. The large creature who seemed to be the captain was the last one in the docking tube. She was badly hurt, limping on two of her legs. Jake grabbed her and half-carried her across. "Everyone's in." "Disconnect!" he yelled. The wayward star pulled away just as the alien vessel exploded. The blast wave hit them hard, rattling the ship. Alarms went off across every system, but they held together. Kyle's engines kept them moving, putting distance between them and the debris. In the cargo bay, the aliens huddled together. Amanda moved among them, doing what she could with supplies meant for humans. The translator helped, but medical treatment was still guesswork. She worked carefully, gently, treating wounds and stabilizing the worst cases. Jake found the captain alien again. Up close, he could see she was exhausted and in pain, but her eyes were clear and intelligent. She touched her chest with one foreleg, then pointed at Jake. "Zithrala," she said. It sounded like her name. "Jake," he replied, copying her gesture. "Jake Morrison." Zithrala's translator rendered her words more clearly now that they had time to calibrate. "You saved us. Risked yourselves for strangers." "Why?" Jake thought about that. How could he explain human nature to an alien species? "Because you needed help," he said finally. "That's reason enough." Zithrala made a sound like humming. "Your species is unusual. Most would have passed by, called authorities, followed safe procedures." "Maybe," Jake admitted. "But we were here."
"You were dying."
Seemed simple to me. "Simple," Zithrala repeated. She reached into a pouch on her uniform and pulled out something small. It was a crystal that glowed with soft blue light. She pressed it into Jake's hand. "My people are Keltheran. We have old traditions. A life debt must be honored. We will remember this day. Remember your names. Remember your kindness." Jake wanted to tell her it wasn't necessary, that they didn't save people expecting rewards. But something in her manner made him stop. This was important to her whole species. He closed his fingers around the crystal and nodded. "Thank you." Over the next 3 days, the wayward star limped toward the nearest inhabited system. Amanda managed to keep all 37 Keltheran alive. They were tough, she discovered. Their biology was strange but resilient. The children recovered fastest, soon chirping and playing in the cargo bay despite everything they'd been through. Lisa kept them on course despite the damage. Kyle worked miracles keeping the engines running, and Jake spent time with Zithrala, learning about her people through the translator. The Keltheran were peaceful, she explained. They were scientists and artists. They had no weapons, no military. The attack had come from pirates who wanted their ship's cargo of rare biological materials. When they finally reached the Keltheran colony world, the reception was overwhelming. Ships came out to meet them. The wayward star was guided down to the surface. Thousands of Keltheran gathered to greet the survivors. Zithrala stood with Jake at the top of the boarding ramp. "You gave us our lives back," she said. "The Keltheran do not forget. In 10 years or 100, if you need us, we will come. This I swear on behalf of all my people." Jake smiled. "I hope we'll meet again in better circumstances." "We will," Zithrala said with certainty. "The galaxy is smaller than you think, Jake Morrison." As the wayward star lifted off hours later, Jake stood on the bridge watching the planet shrink below them. The blue crystal sat on the console in front of him, still glowing faintly. Lisa looked at it and smiled. "Think they meant it?" she asked. "About remembering?" Jake picked up the crystal and tucked it carefully into his pocket. "I don't know. But it doesn't matter. We didn't save them for a reward." "I know," Lisa said. "But it's nice to think we made friends out here." Jake nodded, looking out at the stars. "Yeah, it is." He had no idea how much those words would matter, how much that simple act of kindness would echo across the years to come, how that small crystal in his pocket would one day be the key to saving everything humanity held dear. For now, it was just another day, just another rescue, just humans doing what humans do, but the galaxy had noticed, and the galaxy would remember. 20 years changed everything. Jake Morrison was no longer the young commander of a small exploration ship. Now he wore the stars of an admiral on his uniform, and his responsibility stretched across an entire sector of space. He stood on the bridge of Sentinel's Watch, a massive defense station that orbited just inside human territory. The view from the observation deck never got old. Stars stretched in every direction, so many that they looked like scattered diamonds on black cloth. Jake stood there most mornings with his coffee, watching the ships come and go. Humanity had grown so much in 2 decades. There were colonies on 40 worlds now. Trade routes connected them all. The dream of humanity spreading across the stars had become real, but today the view didn't bring Jake any peace. He held a datapad in his hand, and the words on it made his chest tight with worry. Intelligence reports, warnings from the outer colonies, stories that had been filtering in for months now, getting worse with each passing week. The Vrex were coming. Jake had heard of them, of course. Everyone had. The Vrex Dominion was an empire built on conquest. They were reptilian beings, cold-blooded in more ways than one. Their fleet swept across the galaxy, crushing any resistance. Species that surrendered were enslaved. Species that fought were exterminated. They'd conquered 42 different civilizations in the last 50 years. Now they'd turned their attention toward human space. "Admiral?" A voice interrupted his thoughts. Jake turned to see Lieutenant Peters, a young officer who'd just been assigned to the station. "The morning briefing is ready, sir." Jake nodded and followed him to the command center. The room was filled with screens and consoles. Officers worked at their stations, monitoring everything that happened in the sector. Captain Lisa Grant was already there, waiting. She'd come a long way from the pilot of the Wayward Star. Now she commanded her own destroyer, the Horizon's Edge. "Lisa," Jake greeted her. They were old friends, had been through too much together to stand on ceremony when they were alone. "How was the patrol?" Lisa's face was grim. "We found another one, Jake, the colony on Hendrix 7. The Vrex hit it 3 days ago." "Survivors?" Jake asked, though he already knew the answer from her expression. "None. 2,000 people just gone. They didn't even bother to land. Just bombarded from orbit until there was nothing left." Jake closed his eyes briefly. 2,000 more lives lost. That made 5 colonies now. 5 human settlements wiped out in the last 2 months. The Vrex were testing them, probing their defenses, seeing how humanity would respond. "What's Fleet Command saying?" Lisa asked. "They're scrambling, trying to put together a defense." "But Lisa, the numbers—" Jake pulled up a star map. Red markers showed Vrex fleet positions. Blue markers showed human forces. The difference was shocking. "We're outnumbered 5 to 1. Maybe worse. They have ships we've never seen before, weapons we don't understand." Lisa studied the map, her jaw tight. "We can't just give up. We have to fight, I know. And we will." President Shaw already refused their ultimatum. "They sent an ultimatum?" Jake nodded. "Yesterday. Submit to Vrex rule or be destroyed. Surrender our sovereignty and become part of their empire." Shaw told them to go to hell. "Good," Lisa said fiercely. "We're not slaves. We'll never be slaves." "No," Jake agreed. "But we might be dead if we can't find allies. I've been sending messages to every species we have contact with, asking for help, for support, for anything. Any responses?" "A few, mostly sympathy. Everyone's too afraid to actually help. The Vrex have terrorized the galaxy for so long that no one wants to be next on their list." The briefing lasted another hour. They went over fleet positions, supply lines, defensive strategies. Kyle Barnes joined them via video link from the Mars shipyards where he now worked. He was overseeing the construction of new warships, trying to get them built faster. Amanda Cole called in from her hospital on the frontier, reporting casualties from the raids. After everyone else left, Lisa stayed behind. She poured herself coffee and sat down next to Jake. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "Do you ever think about the Wayward Star?" Lisa asked finally. Jake smiled slightly. "All the time. Simpler days. We saved those aliens. The Keltheran. You still have that crystal they gave you?" Jake reached into his pocket. He'd carried it every day for 20 years, a habit he couldn't break. The blue crystal still glowed softly. "Right here. Zithrala said they'd never forget. That they'd help if we ever needed it." "Think she meant it?" "I don't know. It's been 20 years. They probably forgot all about us." Lisa looked at the crystal thoughtfully. "Maybe you should ask." Jake wanted to dismiss it. The Keltheran were peaceful. They had no military, no weapons. What could they do against the Vrex? But something in Lisa's voice made him pause. "You think it's worth a try? What do we have to lose? We're asking everyone else. Why not them?" That night, Jake sat alone in his quarters and composed a message. He felt foolish doing it, like he was grasping at straws. But Lisa was right. What did they have to lose? He explained the situation simply. Told them about the Vrex threat. Didn't ask for anything specific, just said that humanity could use friends right now. He sent it toward Kelthar in space and tried not to hope too much. 3 weeks later, the Vrex made their first major move. A battle group of 20 ships crossed into human space and headed straight for the colony world of New Hope. Lisa's destroyer was part of the defense force that rushed to intercept them. Jake watched from Sentinel's watch, feeling helpless. The battle played out on his screens in real time. 12 human ships against 20 Vrex warships. The odds were bad, but the human fleet fought with everything they had. It wasn't enough. The Vrex ships were bigger, tougher, more advanced. Their weapons tore through human shields like paper. Lisa's ship, the Horizon's Edge, took direct hits within the first 10 minutes. Jake watched the damage reports scroll across his screen, his hands gripping the console so hard his knuckles turned white. "Come on, Lisa," he whispered. "Get out of there." The human fleet tried every tactic they knew. Hit-and-run attacks, coordinated fire, ramming when nothing else worked. They destroyed 5 Vrex ships, but it cost them 8 of their own vessels. The surviving human ships, including Lisa's badly damaged destroyer, were forced to retreat. The Vrex fleet proceeded to New Hope and began orbital bombardment. 30,000 colonists evacuated in whatever ships they could find, but 5,000 didn't make it out in time. Jake had to watch the colony burn from space, helpless to stop it. Lisa limped back to Sentinel's watch 2 days later. Her ship was a wreck, held together by emergency patches and prayer. Jake met her in the docking bay. She climbed out of the hatch looking exhausted and defeated. There was a bandage on her forehead and her uniform was scorched. "I'm sorry," she said. "We couldn't stop them." Jake pulled her into a hug. "Regulations be damned. You did everything you could. You and your crew fought like heroes. Wasn't enough. Jake, we can't win this. Their ships are too strong. We need help." That night, Jake stood alone on the observation deck again. The crystal was in his hand, glowing in the darkness. He thought about Zithrala and her promise, about the 37 Keltharin they'd saved, about whether any of them even remembered the name Jake Morrison. His comm unit buzzed. A message was coming in. Not just any message. It was marked Priority 1, coming from deep space. The origin point was Keltharin territory. Jake's hands shook as he opened it. The universal translator worked for a moment, and then a hologram appeared. It was Zithrala. She looked older now, her shell more faded, but her eyes were the same. "Jake Morrison," she said, and even through the translator he could hear the warmth in her voice. "We received your message. We remember. The Keltharin do not forget." Jake felt something in his chest unclench. "Zithrala. I wasn't sure you'd respond. Not respond." She made the humming sound he remembered. "You saved our lives. You risked everything for strangers. Did you think we would abandon you now? I didn't know. It's been so long. 20 years is nothing. The memory of that day is taught to every Keltharin child. Your names are in our history. Jake Morrison, Lisa Grant, Kyle Barnes, Amanda Cole. The humans who showed kindness when no one else would. We need help," Jake said simply. "We're being invaded by the Vrex. We can't fight them alone." Zithrala's image seemed to stand straighter. "You will not be alone. The Keltharin are coming, and we are bringing friends." "Friends? You will see. A debt is owed. The Keltharin always pay their debts. We will be there in 5 days." The hologram faded. Jake stood in the darkness, barely able to breathe. Lisa found him there an hour later, still holding the crystal. "Jake, are you okay?" He turned to her and she saw tears on his face. "They're coming," he said. "The Keltharin are coming to help." Lisa's eyes went wide. "Really? They remember?" "They never forgot. Lisa, they're bringing allies." For the first time in months, hope sparked in Jake's chest. The Vrex thought humanity was alone and weak. They thought no one would stand with humans against the might of the Dominion. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The ships appeared exactly 5 days later, just as Zithrala had promised. Jake was on the bridge of Sentinel's watch when sensors picked them up. At first it was just a few contacts at the edge of scanner range. Then more appeared. Then more. "Sir," Lieutenant Peters said, his voice rising with excitement, "I'm reading multiple incoming vessels. They're broadcasting Keltharin identification codes." "How many?" Jake asked, moving to look at the screen. "Still counting, sir. At least 50 ships, no wait. More are appearing. 70, 80. Lisa stood next to Jake, watching in amazement as the count kept climbing. 90 ships. 100, 120. They came out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming in the starlight. But that wasn't all. Mixed among the Keltheran vessels were ships of designs Jake had never seen before. Sleek vessels that looked like they were made of living coral, massive cube-shaped ships that seemed to be carved from solid rock, elegant craft that shimmered with energy fields. "Admiral, we're being hailed," the communications officer announced. "Put it through," Jake ordered. Zithrala's face appeared on the main screen. She looked tired but determined. "Admiral Morrison, we have arrived as promised." "Zithrala," Jake said, trying to keep the emotion out of his voice. "I didn't expect so many. The Keltheran do not forget, and we do not stand alone. When we invoked the right of blood debt, others answered." She gestured, and other figures appeared on the screen beside her. "This is Commander Thelvan of the Thalrin Collective, Admiral Kresh of the Orinth Unity, and Representative Selene from the Yevran." Each alien looked completely different from the others. The Thalrin was aquatic, visible through a water-filled suit. The Orinth was massive and crystalline. The Yevran seemed to be made of pure energy contained in a mechanical form. "Why are you helping us?" Jake asked. "You don't know humanity. We've never even met most of your species." The Thalrin spoke first, his voice bubbling through the translator. "The Keltheran saved our historical records when our homeworld was threatened by a solar flare. Without them, we would have lost our entire past. They asked us to help and we came." The Orinth rumbled next. "My people trade with the Keltheran. They are honest and fair. If they say humanity deserves help, we believe them." The Yevran's voice was like music. "We have watched the Vrex conquer for too long. Someone must stand against them. You humans chose to fight rather than submit. That takes courage." "We respect courage," Zithrala spoke again. "But the greatest reason is simple. You saved us when you had no reason to. You risked everything for strangers. The galaxy needs more species like yours, not fewer. We will not let the Vrex extinguish that light." Jake felt his throat tighten. "Thank you. All of you. We won't forget this." "Good," Zithrala said. "Because the Vrex are coming. Our scouts report a major fleet heading this way. They intend to crush you quickly and make an example of humanity. How long do we have?" 2 weeks. Perhaps less. We must prepare. The next 13 days were the busiest of Jake's life. The Allied fleet integrated with human forces. Commanders met constantly to coordinate tactics. Language barriers were overcome with translators. Different technologies were studied and shared. Kyle Barnes was in his element. He worked with Keltheran engineers who showed him things that seemed like magic. Their ships were grown, not built. They were alive in a way, able to heal damage and adapt to threats. Kyle watched in amazement as a damaged Keltheran ship literally regrew a missing section of hull. "This is incredible," he said to the Keltheran engineer next to him. "Can we apply this to our ships?" The engineer made a musical sound. "It would take years to integrate fully, but we can provide temporary bioplating. It will help your vessels regenerate minor damage. We'll take anything you can give us." Amanda Cole had similar experiences at the medical station. Keltheran doctors showed her treatments they'd developed specifically for humans. They'd been studying human biology for 20 years, preparing for the day they might need to help. "You've been planning this?" Amanda asked in wonder. "Of course," one of the Keltharan medics replied. "Zithrala told us we would repay the debt someday. We wanted to be ready. We have medicines for human injuries, techniques for human surgery. Your species is no longer unknown to us." Lisa took her repaired ship out with a squadron of Keltharan vessels to patrol the perimeter. She learned to work with them, to coordinate their tactics. The Keltharan ships moved differently than human vessels. They were organic flowing, but they were also fast and surprisingly tough. On the 8th day, Zithrala came to Sentinel's watch in person. Jake met her in the docking bay. She was smaller than he remembered, walking slowly on her 6 legs. Age had taken its toll, but her mind was sharp as ever. They sat in Jake's office, drinking tea that the Keltharan had brought as a gift. It tasted strange to Jake, sweet and spicy at the same time, but it was good. "I want to show you something," Zithrala said. She touched a control on her wrist and a hologram appeared. It showed a Keltharan city, beautiful and peaceful. "This is our colony world, the one you brought us to 20 years ago." Jake nodded. He remembered it well. "Look closer." The hologram zoomed in on a building in the center of the city. It was a monument, tall and graceful. At the top was a statue. Jake leaned forward, squinting. The statue showed a human figure helping a Keltharan. The human's face was familiar. "Is that you?" Zithrala confirmed. "We built it 5 years after the rescue. Every Keltharan child visits this monument. They learn your names. They learn what you did. They learn that kindness matters even between strangers." Jake didn't know what to say. He touched the hologram, his finger passing through the image of his younger self. "We made you a legend among our people," Zithrala continued. "But more than that, we made your actions a lesson. The Keltharan were always peaceful, always timid. We never developed weapons because we never thought we'd need them. You taught us that sometimes you must fight to protect what matters." "I didn't mean to change your culture," Jake said quietly. "You didn't change it. You enhanced it. Look." Another hologram appeared. This one showed a shipyard. But the ships being built there weren't like any Keltharan vessels Jake had seen. They were larger, more armored. Weapon systems were visible along their hulls. "You built warships?" Jake asked in surprise. "We did. Not many, we are still a peaceful people. But we decided that if our friends ever needed us, we would be ready. These ships were designed over 15 years. They use our biotechnology but for war instead of exploration. All this for us, for you, for the idea of you, for what you represent." Zithrala set down her tea. "The galaxy is full of species that take, species that conquer, species that care only for themselves. Your kind is different. You give, you help, you risk yourselves for others. That is precious and rare." On the 13th day, the Vrex arrived. Their fleet was enormous, over 200 ships of varying sizes. At the center was a massive flagship, twice the size of anything else. Long-range scans picked up the name, Conqueror's Pride. The commander was a Vrex named Varketh, infamous across the galaxy for his brutality. He sent a message to Sentinel's watch. When it played on the screens, Jake saw a creature built for violence. Scales covered Varketh's body, dark green and scarred from countless battles. His eyes were cold and yellow. "Humans." Varketh's voice was a hiss. "You have refused to submit. You have chosen death. But I see you have found allies, foolish. The Keltharan are weak. The others are cowards. They will break when we attack. Your little alliance will crumble and you will die screaming." Jake recorded his own response. "This is Admiral Morrison of the Human Defense Fleet. You're wrong about my allies. They're here because they choose to be, because they believe in something more than conquest. You want to fight? Come and take what you can." Lisa watched the message with him before he sent it. "Think he'll back down?" "No," Jake said. "But I wanted him to know we're not afraid." "Are we afraid?" Jake looked at her and smiled slightly. "Terrified. But we're going to fight anyway." The message was sent. Varketh's response came an hour later. Just 2 words. "Tomorrow dawn." That night, Jake stood on the observation deck with the blue crystal in his hand. Ships filled the space around Sentinel's watch. Human vessels, Keltharan bioships, Thalran cruisers, Orinth battleships, Yevren fighters. A fleet built not on conquest but on friendship. Lisa found him there. She didn't say anything, just stood beside him. After a while, Kyle and Amanda joined them too. The 4 of them, together again after all these years. "Whatever happens tomorrow," Jake said quietly, "I want you all to know it's been an honor." "Don't talk like that," Lisa said. "We're going to win." "Maybe, but if we don't," Iwanit said. "You 3 are the best crew anyone could ask for." Amanda smiled. "We saved some aliens 20 years ago. Never thought it would lead to this." "Neither did I," Jake admitted. "But I'm glad it did. The galaxy is better with friends in it." They stood together, watching the stars, waiting for the dawn. The battle began at dawn, though dawn in space meant nothing. It was just a word, a human concept to mark the moment when everything changed. Jake stood in the command center of Sentinel's watch, surrounded by screens showing every angle of the battlefield. The Allied fleet spread out before him like a shield, ready to face the incoming storm. The Vrex fleet came in hard and fast. 200 ships against the Allied force of 160. On paper, the Vrex still had the advantage, but numbers weren't everything. Jake had learned that much in his years of service. "All ships battle formation Delta," Jake ordered. His voice was calm, steady. He couldn't let anyone hear the fear in his heart. "Stand ready." Lisa's voice came through the comm from the horizon's edge. "Ready here, Admiral. Let's show them what we've got." The Vrex didn't bother with speeches or demands this time. They just opened fire. The space between the fleets lit up with weapons fire. Beams of energy, missiles, plasma bolts. Everything the Vrex had was thrown at the Allied lines. But the Keltheran bioships absorbed damage in ways the Vrex hadn't expected. Their hulls rippled and healed, regenerating faster than the Vrex weapons could destroy them. The Thalran ships used water shields that dispersed energy weapons. The Orinth vessels were so heavily armored that Vrex fire bounced off their rocky hulls, and the humans fought with a desperation born of protecting their homes. Every ship, every crew member knew what was at stake. This wasn't just a battle. It was survival. The first hour was chaos. Ships on both sides exploded into fireballs. Debris scattered across space. Jake watched the casualty reports scroll across his screen, each one a stab to his heart. 3 human destroyers lost. A Keltheran cruiser destroyed. 2 Thalran ships crippled, but the Vrex were losing ships too. The Allied tactics were working. Human vessels would draw fire while Keltheran ships flanked. Orinth battleships would charge through Vrex lines, scattering their formations. Yevran fighters moved so fast they were almost impossible to hit. Concentrate fire on their command ships, Jake ordered. Take out their leadership and they'll break. Lisa led a squadron of fighters in a daring run straight at a Vrex command vessel. They dodged through incoming fire, losing 2 ships but pressing forward. Lisa's torpedoes hit the Vrex ship's bridge and it exploded in a brilliant flash. 1 down, Lisa reported, moving to the next target, but the Vrex adapted. They always did. That's what made them such dangerous enemies. Their formations tightened. They focused fire on individual ships, overwhelming them before moving to the next target. A human carrier exploded, taking its entire fighter complement with it. Jake heard the screams over the comm before the channel went dead. Admiral, Lieutenant Peters said urgently, the Vrex flagship is moving. Conqueror's Pride is heading straight for us. Jake looked at the tactical display. The massive Vrex ship was pushing through the battle lines, ignoring the fire from Allied ships. It had a single target in mind, Sentinel's Watch. If they destroyed the command station, the Allied fleet would lose coordination. All nearby ships, intercept that flagship, Jake ordered. We can't let it through. Kyle's voice came through from the Mars shipyards. He'd brought his construction vessels to the battle, armed with whatever weapons he could mount. Jake, I'm heading to intercept. No, Kyle, your ships aren't combat vessels. They're all we've got in position. We'll buy you time. Jake wanted to order him back, but Kyle was right. The construction ships moved to block the flagship's path. They were slow and ungainly, built for building, not fighting. But they had mass and they had crews willing to sacrifice everything. The Vrex flagship opened fire. Kyle's lead ship took the hits, its hull tearing apart. But Kyle's crew fired back with mining lasers and improvised weapons. It was like ants attacking a giant, but the ants had courage. We're not going to make it, Kyle said over the comm. His voice was calm, accepting. It's been an honor, Jake. Kyle, no, the construction ship exploded. Jake watched the fireball expand, knowing his friend was gone. His hands gripped the console so hard his knuckles cracked. There would be time to grieve later. Now he had to stop that flagship. Amanda's voice came through from the medical station attached to Sentinel's Watch. Jake, we're being evacuated. They want all non-combat personnel off the station. Go, Jake told her. Get to safety. What about you? I'm staying. Someone has to coordinate the defense, you stubborn fool. I'm not leaving you here. Amanda, save your breath. I've got wounded coming in from every ship in the fleet. They need me. I'm staying. Jake couldn't argue. Truth was, he was grateful not to be alone. The Vrex flagship kept coming, destroying everything in its path. It was almost in weapons range of Sentinel's Watch. Then something extraordinary happened. The Keltheran ships moved. All of them at once, responding to some silent signal. They formed a line between the flagship and the station. Zithrala's voice came over the open channel. Humans saved Keltheran lives 20 years ago, she said. Today we return that favor. All ships prepare for shield formation. Zithrala, no, Jake said. You can't stop that thing. We can try. Your Kyle gave his life to protect you. We will do no less. The Keltheran bioships began to change. Their hulls extended, reaching out to connect with each other. Within seconds, they'd formed a living wall between the Vrex flagship and Sentinel's Watch. Jake stared in amazement. He'd never seen anything like it. The Vrex flagship fired. Energy beams slammed into the Keltheran wall. The bioships absorbed the damage, their hulls glowing with the heat. But they held. They regenerated as fast as they were damaged, a living shield that wouldn't break. Varketh's voice came over the comm, filled with rage. Impossible! You're just Keltherin. You don't have the strength for this. Sithrala responded, her voice steady despite the strain. You're wrong. We have something stronger than any weapon. We have friends worth dying for. The battle raged for 3 more hours. The Vreks threw everything they had at the Allied fleet. Both sides were exhausted, running low on ammunition and power. Ships on both sides were crippled, floating dead in space. The casualty count climbed higher and higher. Jake coordinated what defenses he could, but he was running out of options. The Keltherin shield was holding, but barely. More Vrek ships were breaking through the lines, heading for Earth itself. If they got past the orbital defenses, millions would die. We need a miracle, Lieutenant Peters said quietly. Jake looked at the tactical display, searching for any advantage. The Vrek's flagship was still there, still pouring fire into the Keltherin shield. If they could destroy it, maybe the Vrek's fleet would break. But how? Every ship that got close was destroyed. Then he saw it, a gap in the flagship's defenses. It was small, barely there, but it was enough. Lisa, Jake said into the comm.
Can you hear me?
I'm here, Jake. Ship's barely holding together, but I'm here. I need you to do something crazy. Story of my life. What do you need? Jake explained his plan. There was silence on the other end for a long moment. Then Lisa laughed short and sharp. That's not crazy. That's suicide, I know, but it's all we've got. Then let's do it. For Kyle. For everyone we've lost. Lisa gathered every remaining fighter and bomber she could reach. 30 ships, all that was left of the human strike force. They formed up and headed straight for the Vrek's flagship. It looked like a suicide run, and it was. The Vreks fired at them with everything. Ships exploded left and right, but some got through. Lisa led them through the gap Jake had spotted, a weakness in the flagship's shield generators. They flew through fire and death, losing more ships every second. Lisa's own vessel was hit twice, alarm screaming, but she kept going. Almost there, she said, arming torpedoes. Lisa, you need to pull out, Jake said. Get clear before they detonate. No time. The window's closing. Jake, it's been good knowing you. Lisa, please, but she was already gone. Her fighter and the last few bombers smashed into the Vreks flagship's core, their weapons detonating all at once. The explosion tore through the massive ship, ripping it apart from the inside. Secondary explosions followed as fuel and ammunition ignited. Jake watched his friend die, saving them all. The Vrek's flagship, the mighty Conqueror's Pride, broke in half and died. Without their commander, without their flagship, the Vrek's fleet hesitated. That moment of uncertainty was all the Allied forces needed. They pressed the attack with renewed fury. One by one, Vrek ships began to retreat. Then more. Then the entire fleet was running, jumping to faster-than-light speed and fleeing the system. They'd won, but Jake didn't feel victorious. He felt hollow, empty. Kyle was gone. Lisa was gone. Thousands of others were gone. The price of victory was written in blood and fire. Amanda found him later, still standing in the command center. She put a hand on his shoulder. We held them off, Jake. We saved Earth. At what cost? He asked, his voice rough. Everything we had to give. But we're still here. Humanity survives. That's what Kyle and Lisa died for. Jake nodded slowly. She was right. The battle was over, but the war wasn't done. The Vreks would come back, and next time they'd be ready for Keltherin bioships and Allied tactics. But humanity wouldn't face them alone. Never again. The war didn't end with one battle. It never did. Over the next year, fighting continued across a dozen star systems. The Vreks were wounded but not broken. They regrouped, changed tactics, came at humanity and its allies again and again. But something had shifted in the galaxy. The Vreks were no longer invincible. Word of the battle spread fast. Species that the Vreks had conquered heard that someone had fought back and won. Rebellion started on occupied worlds. The Vreks found themselves fighting on multiple fronts, stretched thin, trying to hold their empire together. Their iron grip was slipping, and everyone could see it. Jake Morrison spent that year coordinating the Allied forces. He was promoted again, though the rank meant little to him anymore. He'd lost too many friends to care about medals and titles. Every morning he woke up thinking about Lisa and Kyle, about the thousands who died defending Earth. Their ghosts haunted him, but he kept working because that's what they would have wanted. He organized supply lines, planned defensive strategies, met with allied commanders. The coalition that had formed to defend humanity grew stronger. More species joined, seeing that the Vrex could be beaten. The Keltheran remained humanity's closest allies. Zuthrala survived the battle, though her ship was heavily damaged. She told Jake later that she'd been prepared to die that day. The shield formation was a last resort, a sacrifice the Keltheran were willing to make. But the bioships had held, regenerating faster than anyone thought possible. "We surprised ourselves," she admitted when they met 6 months after the battle. She looked older, more tired. The war was taking its toll on her too. The Keltheran were always peaceful. But your example showed us that sometimes peace must be defended with strength. They were standing in a memorial garden on Earth. It was a beautiful place, filled with plants from a dozen worlds. At the center was a monument still being constructed. Jake had insisted on it. A memorial for all those who died in the battle. "I never meant to change your people," Jake said quietly. He'd said this before, but the guilt still gnawed at him. "You didn't change us. You reminded us of something important. Being peaceful doesn't mean being weak. It means choosing not to use strength unless necessary. When it became necessary, we were ready." The monument was finished 2 months later. It was massive, made of black stone that reflected the sky. Names were carved into it, thousands of them. Human names, Keltheran names, Thalrin, Orinth, Yevran. Every species that fought, every person who died was remembered there. At the top of the monument was a statue. It showed 5 figures standing together, looking up at the stars. Jake recognized them immediately. Lisa Grant, Kyle Barnes, Amanda Cole, Zuthrala, and himself. "I don't deserve to be up there," Jake said when he saw it. "I survived. They're the heroes." Amanda stood next to him. She'd been working nonstop at her hospital, treating wounded from every battle. She looked as exhausted as Jake felt. "You're all heroes. Every one of you." The living and the dead. The dedication ceremony was huge. Representatives from 40 species came to Earth. President Daniel Shaw gave a speech about courage and sacrifice. But the most powerful moment came when a young Keltheran child stepped forward to lay flowers at the base of the monument. She was tiny, barely bigger than a house cat. Her shell was bright and colorful, unmarked by age or battle. She chirped something in her own language, and the translator rendered it simply, "Thank you for saving my grandmother." Jake knelt down to her level. "What's your name?" "Sila," the child replied. "My grandmother is Zuthrala. She tells me stories about you, about the day you saved her and the others. She says you're the kindest humans in the galaxy." Jake felt tears on his face. He'd cried more in the past year than in his entire life before. "Your grandmother is very brave. She saved us just like we saved her. She says that's what friends do, help each other." She's right. The war finally ended 14 months after the Battle of Earth. The Vrex sued for peace, unable to hold their empire together against multiple rebellions and continued allied attacks. The treaty was harsh. They had to release all conquered species, reduce their military, open their borders to inspectors. The Vrex dominion didn't collapse completely, but it was broken. No longer a threat to the galaxy. Jake attended the signing on a neutral station. He saw Vrex officials up close for the first time since Varketh's death. They looked defeated, angry, humiliated. Part of him felt sorry for them. But then he remembered all the colonies they'd destroyed, all the lives they'd taken. His sympathy faded. The representative from the new alliance spoke clearly. "The age of conquest is over. Any species that tries to build an empire through force will face all of us united. The galaxy has changed. We stand together now." After the treaty was signed, a new organization formed. The Alliance of Free Worlds, they called it. It started with the species that had defended Earth, but others joined quickly. Within a year, it had 50 member species. Within 2 years, 100. Jake was offered a position as one of the Alliance's military commanders. He accepted, though part of him just wanted to retire. But there was too much work to do. The galaxy was rebuilding, and humanity was at the center of it. Amanda became the head of the Alliance Medical Corps. She established hospitals on dozens of worlds, trained doctors from different species to work together. Her techniques for treating diverse biologies became the standard across Allied space. The Mars shipyards, Kyle's legacy, became the primary construction facility for the Alliance fleet. They built ships using combined technologies from multiple species. Human engineering, Keltheran biotechnology, Orinth materials, Thalrin shielding, ships that represented the best of everyone. 5 years after the battle, Jake returned to Earth for another ceremony. This time it was for a new academy. The Alliance wanted a place to train officers from all member species, and they'd chosen Earth for its location. The academy would teach not just military tactics but also diplomacy, cooperation, mutual understanding. Jake was asked to give the opening speech. He stood before 1,000 cadets from 100 worlds, all young and eager. Some had shells, some had scales, some had skin. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Others existed as energy patterns, but they all wore the same uniform. They all shared the same purpose. "I'm not good at speeches," Jake began. "I'm just a soldier. But I've learned some things over the years. The galaxy is bigger than any one species, stronger together than apart. 25 years ago, my crew saved some aliens we didn't know. We did it because it was right, because they needed help." He paused, looking out at the sea of faces. That simple act changed everything. It brought allies when we needed them most. It saved humanity from extinction. But more than that, it taught the galaxy a lesson. That kindness matters. That helping strangers isn't weakness, it's strength. The cadets listened silently, absorbing every word. "You're here because your worlds believe in that lesson. You're here to learn how to protect each other, how to stand together." The Vrex thought conquest was strength. They were wrong. Real strength is what we have now. Unity, trust, friendship. He gestured to the monument visible through the window. The names on that memorial are people who understood that. They gave everything to protect not just their own species, but all of us. Human, Keltheran, Thalrin, Orinth, Yevran. They fought and died together. Jake's voice got softer. "I miss them. Every day. My friends, my crew, the best people I ever knew. But their sacrifice wasn't wasted. Look at what we've built. An alliance. A galaxy where species help each other instead of conquering each other. That's their legacy." He straightened, his voice growing stronger. "So here's what I want you to remember. Every one of you comes from a different world, a different culture. But you're all here for the same reason. To protect this alliance. To make sure that what happened to humanity never happens to anyone else. To prove that the galaxy is better when we stand together." The cadets stood and saluted, a gesture that had been standardized across all Alliance species. Jake saluted back, feeling the weight of responsibility but also hope. These young officers would carry the Alliance into the future. After the ceremony, Zithrala found him. She was very old now, moving slowly, but her mind was still sharp. "Beautiful speech," she said. "You've become quite the diplomat," Jake laughed. "Never thought I'd see the day. I was just a ship commander once. Simple job, simple life. Nothing about you was ever simple, Jake Morrison. You changed the galaxy. We did it together, all of us." They walked through the academy gardens, two old friends enjoying a peaceful moment. Zithrala stopped at a small pond where earthfish swam alongside Keltheran aquatic creatures. "Do you ever think about that day?" "On the wayward star." "Every day. I still have the crystal you gave me." Jake pulled it from his pocket. After all these years, he still carried it. It still glowed with soft blue light. "Keep it," Zithrala said. "Pass it to your children. Let them remember that small acts of kindness can echo across the stars." "I will." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching different species swim together in harmony. It was a small thing, but it represented something bigger, a galaxy learning to coexist, to help each other, to be better than they were. "The Keltheran debt is paid," Zithrala said finally. "We saved humanity as you saved us. The accounts are balanced.